Well, good morning. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for tuning in today. On behalf of the entire Active Transportation Resource Center team at both Caltrans and the California Department of Public Health, I want to welcome each and every one of you to the latest installment of the ATRC's On the Move webinar series, Synergy 2024. My name is Victoria Custodio, and along with my colleagues Marianne Hernandez and Alicia Ramos, we'll be the host team for today's webinar entitled ATP Quick Build and Demonstration Projects. We have a wonderful webinar planned for you today with some incredible speakers and presentations, but I want to begin with an introduction of the ATRC and our webinar series for those of you who may be tuning into our webinar series for the first time. So the Active Transportation Resource Center, or the ATRC, is a long-standing, Alicia, I'm sorry, I can't, yeah, thank you, perfect. The Active Transportation Resource Center, or the ATRC, is a long-standing Caltrans Active Transportation Program project, which is supported by funding from the California Transportation Commission's Active Transportation Program. Caltrans manages the ATRC, and CDPH helps to staff the ATRC, which provides resources, training, and technical assistance to local agencies and other eligible entities across California who are looking for the ATP for funding to build more walk and bike friendly environments and to provide planning, public engagement, and targeted education and encouragement programs to increase safe walking and bicycling. The overall purpose of our webinar series is to serve our statewide active transportation network with timely and relevant, free-to-attendee online trainings that foster innovation and collaboration around active transportation planning, while also highlighting the opportunity for meaningful and impactful active transportation projects. Next slide, please. All right, great. So here is our wonderful list of speakers today. We are very thankful that they've all agreed to share their expertise with our network. I'll do a proper introduction of each speaker in advance of each presentation, but here's a quick snapshot of who we'll be hearing from. This was also outlined on the announcement that brought you to our webinar today. Next slide, please. Okay, as for all of our webinars, we set some learning objectives for those that are in attendance. And so the ones we set for today are the following. We hope that through your attendance today that you'll learn how ATP demonstration and quick build projects can be used to further an infrastructure project in your area. You can also learn how ATP demonstration and quick build projects can accelerate complete streets and complete networks in your area. And then finally, we want to leave you with some information about ATP demonstration and quick build projects' unique application process and the eligibility of these types of activities and projects through the Active Transportation Program. Next slide, please. All right, so before we begin, just some quick webinar logistics. If you have any questions, we ask that you share your questions through the Q&A function button. Following all of the presentations, we will have a robust Q&A session. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them into the Q&A box at any time during the webinar, and we'll get to them after all presentations have been completed. We also, at the end of the webinar, ask that you complete a post-webinar attendee survey. So there should be a button that allow you to access a survey. So we really hope that you can take that before leaving, so that we can get your feedback on how this webinar will fit into your own local or regional efforts. And then finally, we always get a lot of questions. Will the webinar be recorded? Yes, we do record all of our webinars so that they can be accessed at a further date. And so as a registered participant, you will be receiving access to the recording and the slides and the follow-up resources that will be discussed during the webinar as part of a post-webinar communication. Okay, next slide, please.
I'm going to stop sharing, and then we're going to launch the poll. And
Perfect.
then Ellie We'll go into our presentation.
Okay, great. So yes, before we begin with our first speaker, and I'll do that introduction as she puts her slide deck up, we have a poll question just to figure out who is your experience with quick build and demonstration projects. So the question that we have for you is very simple. Have you implemented a demonstration or quick build project? It's single choice, yes or no. So give you a few seconds to do that while our first speaker, Allie, pulls up her slide deck, if she's able to do that. All right. Okay. All right. I see that I think we've given enough time to answer this question. Can we go ahead and close the poll and get the results? All right. So I believe all of you can see this as well. So our attendees who've responded, 76% have answered that they have not implemented a demonstration or quick build project yet, whereas 24% have. So hopefully that helps our speakers better understand who's in the audience today. On that note, I am going to introduce our first speaker. So our first speaker is Allie Dorr Westbrook, who is a senior transportation planner at Caltrans headquarters in the Division of Local Assistance Office of State Programs. She is also the active transportation program manager for non-infrastructure and plan projects, as well as the active transportation resource center project manager. So she's overseeing all of the many things that we do at the ATRC. Allie has worked at Caltrans since 2018 and has led numerous efforts to support complete streets, vehicle miles travel reduction, and transportation demand management. Prior to working for the state of California, Allie worked at the local level, worked up in Oregon at the city of Eugene doing open streets events and community initiatives focused on helping people walk, bike, and take transit. Allie's presentation is focused on ATP demonstration projects, and she's also going to introduce how ATP demonstration projects and quick builds relate, and as she tag teams with her colleague, Desiree Fox, who will be following Allie's presentation. Okay, Allie, can I do a quick audio check with you?
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
You sound great. All right, take it away.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Victoria, and good morning, everyone. As was mentioned, my name is Allie Dorr Westbrook, and I'm excited to share more about demonstration projects, which are an eligible non-infrastructure project type under the Active Transportation Program, or ATP. Okay. All right, here's an outline for what I'll be covering. But if you still have questions after the webinar, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. It's my hope that anyone interested in doing a demonstration project gets the information that you need. So today I'll be covering the definition of a demonstration project as outlined in the ATP guidelines, distinctions between a demonstration project and a quick build project, which we'll be hearing about from Desiree, example materials that might be used on a demonstration projects, some process recommendations that we have, and these are just a few points, but you'll be hearing later on from our partners at SCAG about great resources that they've developed to help folks in outlining the process that should be taken. Some evaluation processes for demonstration projects. I'll also be covering a little bit about the ATP non-infrastructure application and eligibility for this project type. I want to make folks aware of the project study report equivalency, or 25R, as you might, there we go. I think this will help folks be able to see the full screen. Now, apologies for that. Also, we'll be discussing reporting and potential schedule changes, and last but not least, resources for implementing a successful demonstration project. Okay, so demonstration projects, sometimes referred to as pop-ups, are defined in the Active Transportation Program, Non-Infrastructure Program and Expenditure and Cost Guidance as projects that temporarily display proposed street improvements during early stages of planning so that people can experience and learn about the proposed design. Demonstration projects have been implemented across the country and continue to be a key tool in showing the community what's possible prior to an infrastructure project. Here on the screen are two examples of demonstration projects, one in the Skag region showing a traffic circle, and another in Tamsie's region demonstrating an improved crosswalk near a school zone. And on the bottom of this slide, I've highlighted where this definition is provided, and that was used for ATP cycle 6, which was the previous ATP cycle. Okay. Since you'll be learning more about demonstration and quick build projects this morning, we thought it was important to highlight some of the key distinctions. So demonstration projects are typically short, one day to 1 month, but I think on average, we've seen them last about 1 to 7 days. They tend to be colorful and aesthetic to capture the attention of people that are experiencing them. They encourage curiosity and interaction with a potential facility design, similar to what you saw on the last slide. The materials that are used are temporary and low cost. They often include signage to highlight planned changes and encourage active transportation and enhance public involvement. Some example materials that might be used on a demonstration project are highlighted here. So we have chalk, traffic tape, temporary paint, safety cones, plastic barriers, all things that many of you might have experienced already in your own community or are very familiar with. I just want to highlight that some of these materials do have overlap with the quick build projects that you'll be hearing about later on. But I think a key distinction is, the amount of time that the projects are in place. So making sure you have a successful demonstration project starts with early planning and coordination. When and where you host your demonstration project may also impact the steps that you need to follow. It's important to give yourself as much time as possible to ensure the success of your event. And here are some steps that we've seen be successful in other communities. So first, having a good understanding of where you want to have your demonstration project take place. It's also really important that any agencies or entities that you're working with, that you develop a project team with them and a memorandum of understanding, what you're hoping to achieve with this demonstration project. I think all being on the same page from the beginning really helps with the success of your demonstration project. We also encourage folks to develop detailed design plans for the demonstration, really outlining what the project will look like once it's in the field. Another step that we've seen be super beneficial for the success of demonstration projects is creating event materials and just any way to highlight the project amongst your community. Demonstration projects may require that you obtain permits. So you want to make sure and figure that out early on when you're designing your demonstration project. You may also need to obtain event insurance. And then here we talk a little bit about that advertising plan. How are you going to make the community aware that the demonstration project is taking place? When it's out in the field, you want to make sure that people are out there viewing the project and testing it for themselves. So it's really important to have a strong advertising or marketing plan put together once you're implementing your project. And I'll discuss a little bit later about the evaluation of your demonstration project. But when you're kind of putting together the process, think about how are you going to evaluate the success of the demonstration project that you're doing. So it's important to think about that early on in the process before it's out in the field. And lastly, you need to install the project. So coming up with a day of or a week of plan for once the demonstration project in the field is something that we highly recommend for folks pursuing this type of project. All right, so here's 3 different types of evaluation that we've seen be used on demonstration projects. So participant surveys when the project is in the field. It is a requirement of ATP projects, both infrastructure and non-infrastructure, to do before and after counts. So this is something that should be considered by, or that needs to be taken into consideration by all applicants. And then you can also do traffic counts. So when the demonstration project was in place, how did that change, the flow of vehicles traveling along the route? Okay. Now I just briefly wanted to touch on the ATP application for demonstration projects and share a few existing resources. As I shared earlier, demonstration projects are eligible under the ATP non-infrastructure. And here are 2 different documents from ATP Cycle 6 that I recommend reviewing if you plan to apply this cycle. Please note that they may be updated for Cycle 7, so make sure to review the correct version prior to submitting your application. And so I've highlighted here to review the 2023 non-infrastructure project application scoring rubric. This is what reviewers of non-infrastructure projects have to look at, and the questions that are on here I think are really helpful for anyone considering applying for a demonstration project. I've also included the ATP non-infrastructure program expenditure and cost guidance, Appendix B, which is demonstrated on the photo to the right. Okay, one key part of a demonstration project or applying for the ATP is putting together a 25R, which a 25R is the project's scope and is required for all non-infrastructure projects that are submitted within the ATP. So what this document really does is it outlines the tasks, deliverables, and schedules for your project. And similar to the early side when I was kind of going over like the process for planning your project, I think this document itself is also super beneficial for helping the project team kind of put together the steps that need to be taken. Okay, and then I also wanted to highlight back in December, the CTC held a workshop on the PSR equivalency. And so for non-infrastructure projects, that is a 25R, and we went into great detail about, how to put together that document. So I referenced this here for folks in case you weren't able to participate in that webinar, but it is also available on the CTC's website. Okay, so for demonstration projects, reporting is required. It is a non-infrastructure project type. And so what that means is that you'll need to report quarterly progress on your project. You'll need to provide a completion report and a final delivery report. And these will all be submitted through CalSMART. So just wanted to flag for folks that are considering applying for this type of project that there is reporting that is involved with each of these, and we have a whole host of folks at Caltrans who can assist in the reporting requirements. But once your project has been selected, so make sure to send information over to folks. As I shared before, demonstration projects also require counts. So it's really important to think when you're putting together a potential project, think about this requirement and the work and time that will be needed in order to collect this information. So just really wanted to make folks aware of that. And I've provided a link to the interim count guidance for your review. And then, as mentioned, we have ATP non-infrastructure email. If you have any questions about, what it looks like to report for a demonstration project, we'd be happy to assist you with that process. But just wanted to flag for folks because I think with demonstration projects, it's really exciting to think about the project and actually implement it. But there are, some less exciting sides of it, which is, just making sure that you're meeting these important progress reporting deadlines. Okay. And then lastly, I just wanted to share some existing resources for folks around demonstration and probably some pop-up and quick builds in here as well. But the Open Streets Guide is another type of Open Streets are another type of non-infrastructure project that are applicable under the ATP. And so this Open Streets Guide is a really great resource, collected examples from all across the country on putting together a successful Open Streets event. SCAG's Go Human campaign, and in particular their kind of parts, which you'll be hearing about shortly, is a tremendous resource and something that I'm really excited to hear more about. And then there's also a Tactical Urbanism Material and Design Guide. And so if you're curious about different types of materials that you might want to use on a demonstration project, this is a tremendous resource. Also some additional resources on how to do pop-ups in coordination with Safe Routes to School programs. And then AARP also has a demonstration toolkit that they have put together. So I wanted to make these available for folks who might be interested. All right. So with the ATRC, we also are able to provide technical assistance to folks. So I've highlighted here, you heard from Victoria earlier, Alicia and Marianne, who are helping with the webinar, are tremendous resources for anyone that's considering applying for a demonstration project. Right now, they've kind of broken themselves up into the districts that they'll be supporting. So Victoria is supporting districts 1 to 5, Alicia 6 through 11, and Marianne 6, 9, 10, and 11, and then Marianne 7, 8, and 12. So, if folks have any additional questions after this webinar and would like some support on a potential demonstration project, they're a great additional resource to reach out to. And then also here are contacts for Caltrans. So we have links to our district local assistance engineers, our district ATP coordinators, which I'm sure you all are very familiar with if you've applied for the ATP program before, and then also contacts at headquarters, so ATP staff. And since demonstration projects are, a part of the non-infrastructure program, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, Michael, or Emma. And as shared earlier, these slides will be presented. But I hope this kind of helped get better understanding of what demonstration projects are, and look forward to questions later on in the webinar. Now I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Desiree, or actually Victoria first, and then Desiree, who will talk about quick build projects.
Right. So, and I'm sorry, I was remiss in actually sharing Desiree Fox's bio before Ali started her presentation. But you'll hear next from Desiree Fox, who is a senior transportation engineer with 23 years of experience at Caltrans. She has been an active transportation program manager since 2018 and covers districts 1 through 5. Desiree assists agencies with project implementation, policy interpretation, and policy compliance. Desiree holds a Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering from California State University, Sacramento, and she is here joining us today to talk about ATP quick build projects. Desiree, can I have you come off mute? Yep, perfect. And just do a quick audio check.
Testing.
Testing is great. All right, turn it away, Desiree. Thanks so much.
Okay, great. Thank you, Victoria and Ali. Good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Desiree Fox, and I'm with the Caltrans Headquarters Division of Local Assistance, and I'm happy to be here with you today with the goal to help demystify this very specific concept with a vague name called quick build projects. In particular, I plan to address how quick build projects within the active transportation program are defined. So this should be particularly informative for those of you that plan to apply to the active transportation program with a quick build project. Next slide, please. So this is the outline for today. We plan to discuss the definition of a quick build, distinctions between quick builds and similar types of projects, such as demonstration projects, as you just heard, and capital outlay infrastructure projects. So, the distinctions between those. The importance and expectation of public engagement, quick build eligibility, such as the construction items and elements that are specifically required to be considered as a quick build, some implementation aspects to consider, example materials that make up quick builds, and finally, how quick builds are treated regarding timely use of funds and reporting. Next slide. So quick builds are active transportation projects to put bicycle, pedestrian, or traffic safety improvements in place quickly using durable, low to moderate cost materials. The purpose is to offer an interim capital infrastructure project as quickly as possible to address an immediate safety need, with the ability to test the improvements while receiving feedback from the community before the project is made more permanent. They can easily be adjusted based on community input and further technical analysis over time. Quick build projects typically last 1 to 5 years. Next slide. To define quick builds further, it's important to distinguish them from other types of projects. Note that quick build projects use more durable materials than a demonstration project. Within the active transportation program, demonstration projects are considered non-infrastructure projects, and quick build projects are considered infrastructure projects. However, quick build projects are more flexible than a traditional infrastructure project based on the materials that are used. They can easily be deconstructed or changed if the public does not approve. They should not have a significant impact on the environment, expand the physical area, or substantially alter the existing use of a street. Quick build projects can remain in place if they are successful based on public feedback, and they are intended to remain until a more permanent project can be constructed. Next slide. Another important component to quick builds is public engagement. Quick builds are put in place so quickly that the public engagement process happens after the project has been placed out for use. There are a variety of factors to consider when engaging community partners throughout the planning and design process. First, consider who you want to engage, such as business owners, community-based organizations, and most importantly, the residents. You'll want to be sure to reach out early and often using methods such as social media, flyers, websites, door-to-door visits, and surveys. You can also use the free SafeTrack street story tool that was developed by UC Berkeley and funded by the ATP through the Active Transportation Resource Center. Street Story is a crowdsourcing community engagement tool that allows residents, community groups, and agencies to collect information about transportation collisions, near misses, general hazards, and safe locations to travel. This tool can be easily adapted to collect input for a quick build project. Next slide. So this slide here is really important because it summarizes the items that you will need to consider prior to submitting your quick build project. Engagement is listed here again to emphasize the importance of this piece to successfully submitting and delivering a quick build project through the ATP. The new Cycle 7 guidelines will require ongoing data collection during a minimum 6-month testing period. And the proposed testing and data collection schedule is required in the application. Materials should be easy to install, remove, and relocate, and should have minimal impact to existing conditions. No groundbreaking should occur, especially no deep or large foundations. Signs that are easily installed and removed are acceptable. For programming purposes, CEQA should be cleared prior to programming, which is a change from Cycle 6. Cycle 6 required CEQA clearance at the time of application, but CTC is adjusting that requirement in Cycle 7. Quick build projects will only receive construction funding under construction infrastructure. Remember that quick build projects are considered infrastructure projects, unlike the demonstration project counterparts, which are considered non-infrastructure. That also means that right-of-way will need to be cleared prior to the allocation of funds. The initial design work should be submitted with the application. It is also encouraged through the scoring criteria to have more than one configuration or layout in the application. Additional design work can be done in the construction phase through construction engineering or design build. Since quick builds are supposed to address an urgent safety need, the funding is only available in the first 2 fiscal years of the cycle. So for Cycle 7, you can only program quick build construction funds in either fiscal year 2025-2026 or 2026-2027. Quick builds will be assigned state-only funds, which provide a little more flexibility than federal funds and have less requirements to allow for faster execution and less support costs. And starting this cycle, which is Cycle 7, you will be required to meet with commission staff prior to applying. Next slide, please. Here are some implementation items to consider. When developing the estimate, be sure to show the materials that will be used on the project. Estimate the types and quantities based on your planned configurations. Also consider that materials can be reused when appropriate. The material usage and placement are subject to California MUTCD requirements and should be estimated based on the appropriate unit and unit costs. Avoid using lump sum items unless necessary, and there is a list of acceptable lump sum items in the project estimate template. Quick builds are not meant to be developed to the level of a project study report equivalent and will not receive the level of review nor be held to the same standard for scope changes as a standard infrastructure project within the ATP, because the design configurations are expected to change during the public engagement process. All project designs are still subject to adopted design standards. And when using contractors, projects must be placed out to bid per California Public Contract Code, or you may be able to, you also might be able to use force account. So state funds are used, so there's no need for public interest finding. Ultimately, when it comes to contract law, consult your agency's legal staff. Next slide. These are some example materials. Again, they should be easy to install, remove, and relocate, and should have minimal impact to existing conditions. So these are just some of the barrier elements that can be used, such as raised lane separators, K71 delinear posts, K-rail, armadillos, on and on. Next slide. Following up with more example materials, such as, signs, which I included before, which can be used, as well as surface treatments, stencils, and acrylic asphalt paint. And I also included signal modifications, which are not materials, but serve as scope to consider within your projects. Next slide. So quick builds are subject to timely use of funds like the other ATP projects. The award and completion periods are the same. So six months for award and 36 months for construction completion. But based on the draft Cycle 7 guidelines, the maximum time extension per delivery deadline is 3 months, which is for each of the allocation, award, and completion periods. And for all time extensions, the extension can only be for unforeseen and extraordinary circumstances, and it must be justified. Next slide. Progress reports and completion and final delivery reports are also required for quick builds. However, the reporting is not done in CalSmart. It's done through an Excel spreadsheet template. But just like typical reporting, we require documentation, but this will be of the data collected during the testing period, as well as photos and layout plans of configurations that were tested. Next slide. Here are some quick build resources for more information. Most of the information from this presentation can also be found specifically in the quick build supplemental guidance. That guidance particularly supplements the quick build information found in the ATP guidelines, but it's a document that we created at Caltrans for use with the active transportation program. We'll be updating and posting the revised version shortly, but for now you can find the Cycle 6 version online. Next slide. And as always, please feel free to reach out to us with any questions. We have so many contacts, I couldn't fit them on one page, so I provided links. A lot of these links are on the same slide that Ali provided in the demonstration project presentation. But you can reach out to CTC's ATP staff about the application as well. So I included the link to their website. And you can speak to them about the application, the guidelines, and eligibility. Caltrans has some overlapping eligibility responsibilities, so there may be some items that you can reach out to us for regarding that topic. Once your project is funded, then you will be primarily working with Caltrans. So your district staff is your first point of contact. The headquarters staff is available for program-specific questions. I cover districts 1 through 5. My other infrastructure counterparts are Cirillo Solilikin, who covers Central Region districts 6, 9, and 10, as well as District 11, and Elijah Hall, who covers districts 7, 8, and 12. And then there is my non-infrastructure counterpart, Ali Dor Westbrook, who just covered demonstration projects, and the other NI staff are listed here as well, which are Michael Hutnick and Emma Maloney. And that completes my presentation.
All righty. Thank you so much, Desiree and Ali, both, for really laying the groundwork of understanding of the difference and the distinctions between demonstration projects and quick builds under the ATP program. We're going to follow up these presentations with presentations now that really look at implementation in the field. And so on that note, I'm going to ask our next speaker, Lina Borja, to bring up her slides and come off camera when you're ready and give me a quick audio check.
Thank you, Victoria.
All right, wonderful. I'll just do a quick introduction. Alina Borja is an equity-minded urban planner with a focus in community engagement and a commitment to resourcing and amplifying community-led solutions. She serves as a community engagement specialist at the Southern California Association of Governments, or in the, to many of us, SCAG, and she works primarily with the Go Human Active Transportation Safety and Encouragement Program. So we're very happy to have her here today to speak specifically about a partnership between the Go Human and Active Transportation Resource Center and the use of the kit of parts in outside of the SCAG region. So on that note, I'll turn it over to you, Alina.
Thank you so much, Victoria. And thank you to everyone for being here. Good morning to everyone. All right, so in this presentation, I'll go through an overview of my organization, SCAG, and the program that I work with, Go Human. Then I'll get into what the Kit of Parts is. It is a great resource that we use very often, and the ATRC pilot partnership program that Victoria just mentioned. Then I'll talk about project outcomes and considerations and lessons learned. And I'll wrap up with a couple of additional resources. Okay, so an introduction of the SCAG region. We are a very large and diverse region for the Southern California Association of Governments. Spans 6 counties, including 16 tribal governments, 191 jurisdictions. almost 19 million residents, 38,000 square miles, a regional GDP of 1.6 trillion, making it the 16th largest economy worldwide, and almost half of the state population. So the Go Human program was launched in 2015, and it's SCAG's active transportation safety and encouragement campaign. The Go Human program serves the regional goals of SCAG across those 6 counties, so a lot of diverse geographical needs. And it focuses on hyperlocal solutions, so community identified issues and solutions. And this program is a response to the regional traffic safety conditions of our region, in which 1,600 people die every year from traffic collisions, 7,000 people sustain serious injuries every year from traffic collisions, and 140,000 people in the region sustain injuries from traffic collisions. And these traffic safety burdens tend to fall disproportionately on people who walk and bike. So people who walk and bike make up 5% of daily trips in the region, but 36% of traffic fatalities. In response, SCAG and the Go Human program has provided these resources since 2015, and it started as an advertising campaign, but soon expanded to this suite of resources that SCAG provides in order to boost the local traffic safety efforts in the region. So this suite of resources includes community funding, such as the Community Streets Grant Program meant for community-based organizations, nonprofits, and social enterprises that is currently open. The traffic safety campaigns across the region sponsored by SCAG. So these include the co-branded safety materials that SCAG provides to local jurisdictions and organizations at no cost. Resources for implementation of traffic safety efforts. So this is the umbrella under which the Kit of Parts falls, and other storytelling and education resources to kind of boost those local traffic safety narratives. And oftentimes, these resources are like multiple of these resources are provided to our partners in order to set them up for success and just increase the impact of what they're doing. So moving into what is the Kit of Parts. The Kit of Parts is a set of lightweight materials that can be used to temporarily demonstrate street design elements and active transportation safety improvements. SCAG lends these out to partners in the region and beyond through the Pilot Partnership Program. These are easily transported and loaned out to partners at no cost. And we loan the, let me move into the elements that are included in the kit. So the kit includes a creative crosswalk, a curb extension, a parklet, a median refuge island or pedestrian refuge island, a separated bike lane, and each 5 of these elements comes with its own educational signage in English and in Spanish explaining what the element is. The Kit of Parts is a popular engagement tool in the SCAG region and beyond. In the past fiscal year, 17 demonstrations used the Kit of Parts, and 3 of those demonstrations occurred in partnership with the Caltrans ATRC in the Pilot Partnership Program. These events and these efforts engaged more than 8,000 people. Let me move towards my notes. So the efforts and demonstrations that surround the Kit of Parts are meant to inspire and facilitate permanent changes to safety infrastructure. Go Human investments and other resources also support community engagement to accelerate permanent improvements. Between 2016 and 2023, 19 pop-ups moved towards permanent implementation. That's about 1/4 of those projects that either secured funding or moved towards implementation in some way. In the example pictured here, Arts Council Long Beach, who was a 2021 Go Human grantee, used their grant funds and technical assistance from our program to conduct a demonstration, which collected data for a future installation of the demonstrated improvement. So you can see here that they used the curb extension from our kit of parts, some of the signage that we provided, and then they leveraged other funds to permanently install the element that they had demonstrated. In 2022, Go Human partnered with the Caltrans Active Transportation Resource Center to expand the reach of the kit of parts beyond the SCAG region into a statewide arena. ATRC hired California Walks to implement the program, utilizing the lending library to temporarily demonstrate potential and planned street improvements and safety infrastructure to create safer and more inviting spaces. After a competitive call for applications, 3 agencies were selected to participate in this program: the Town of Paradise, the City of Los Banos, and the City of Fresno, to demonstrate temporary safety improvements in the community. The technical assistance that was provided by California Walks was in-depth and included everything from event ideation and getting a team together, site planning, permitting, logistics coordination, staffing, promotion, data collection, documentation, reporting, and more. The pop-up demonstration events in each of the selected cities included a protected bike lane and an artistic crosswalk in Fresno, a protected bike lane and artistic crosswalk in the Town of Paradise, and a parklet and curb extension in the City of Los Banos. So the project created opportunities for the residents of these 3 communities to experience the proposed safety improvements in live traffic settings, and an opportunity to provide important feedback that might support the potential implementation of the improvements. 216 community members, students, parents, business owners, and stakeholders completed a survey through these events. And in each case, a majority of the respondents supported the demonstrated improvements. Over 270 individuals participated in these demonstrations. So here on the side of the slide is a screenshot from one of the reports, I believe the Fresno report, and the type of feedback that participants provided. So 93 felt safer walking because of the protected bike lane and would like to see it permanently improved. 91% felt safer because of the creative crosswalk and would like to see it permanently installed. The host agencies use these demonstrations to boost engagement efforts in some existing projects in their communities. For example, identifying complete streets priority projects, informing master plan development, and providing data for active transportation program applications and other funding opportunities. Each of these projects engaged local community-based organizations, which supported capacity building at the local level. All right, I'm going to move into some budget considerations for those of you that might consider putting on a demonstration event of your own. And these costs vary on multiple factors such as scope, scale, and other things, including whether or not the demonstration event is going to be standalone or coordinated with another event. Many of the kit of parts demonstrations happen either as their own event or as part of another event like a farmer's market, a fair, an open streets event, etc. Costs vary based on whether or not the demonstration will be multi-day or single day. The types of materials that will be purchased. So with the kit of parts, when using the kit of parts materials are no cost and tend to be the central part of the demonstration. Additional materials can be purchased, but of course, other demonstration projects not using the kit of parts would have other materials that would be purchased to set up that demonstration. Costs vary whether a consultant leads the effort or if the city staff or CBO staff would be leading the effort. Whether or not the demonstration will be held in live traffic conditions or on a closed street. any permitting costs that might be part of this, or traffic control costs, programming costs, for example, conducting engagement projects to gather data, maintenance of the materials, and more. So here on the side, we have some price ranges for demonstration events. A consultant-led demonstration event might be on the low end about $10,000 and on the high end up to $200,000. Staff or partner-led demonstrations might be on the low end $5,000 and on the high end up to $150,000. And I've also included information for pilots and quick builds here, even though that is not the main that's not the main focus of this slide deck. But in co-human program experience, pilots and quick builds, staff and partner-led pilots and quick builds tend to be on the low end 30,000, and on the high end 1 million plus, and consultant-led pilots and quick builds tend to be on the low end 150,000 up to 1.25 million plus. All right, so some lessons learned from this pilot program. Recommendation number 1, allowing enough planning time to secure buy-in from the local jurisdictions who own and operate the right-of-way. So many jurisdictions, so this also depends like who is leading the demonstration project. If the city staff is leading the demonstration project, you kind of have some built-in buy-in there. If someone other than maybe the Public Works Department or whoever owns the right-of-way is leading the project, looping in those partners will definitely be part of the process. And many folks are new to demonstration projects. So definitely allowing enough time to have those conversations will be part of these projects. Expecting and planning for shipping delays due to contracts and payment delays. So the kit of parts, I think this is speaking specifically to the kit of parts in some ways. The kit of parts is a no-cost resource, and we serve folks throughout the SCAG region, and through this pilot partnership program, we're able to bring these materials to locations outside of the SCAG region. However, bringing that many materials and shipping them long distance does take up quite a bit of time, especially our delivery company requires a couple of weeks, sometimes more, in order to get the unit, the storage unit, to where it needs to be. So just getting those transportation logistics down is a huge part of the process. Taking time to train staff and volunteers, especially if they need to conduct engagement surveys with residents and using the temporary designs. So this is definitely part of the process, especially when community-based organizations might be leading the project, and they already have a built-in pool of volunteers that they use. Taking some of the time to train that staff in the goals of the project is very helpful. And then recommendation number 4, covering all costs associated with the deployment, including the payment of special permits, traffic control, and engagement activities by local partners. So some additional resources that one might look into when conducting a temporary demonstration. If using the kit of parts, definitely recommend the activations playbook that SCAG has published. This is on the SCAG website, and I'll get into it a little more. It's useful. It's definitely recommended when using the kit of parts, but it's useful beyond just because it's a how-to guide on how to lead a temporary demonstration from like the very beginning, like conceptual portion of the project, all the way through post activation activities like documentation and reporting. I'll get into that a little more in the next slides. Other tactical urbanism guides, including NACTO's Urban Street Design Guide and Bloomberg's Asphalt Art Guide. One of the projects that I mentioned, the Arts Council Long Beach project that was permanently implemented, those artistic curb extensions, they leveraged Bloomberg asphalt art funding in order to implement that permanently in their city. And throughout the grant program that Bloomberg has run, they've collected a lot of information about the types of paint that folks used, how much it costs to install one of these asphalt art improvements. And that is all collected in our asphalt art guide. So very useful for, especially for folks who might be embarking on like an artistic transportation improvement for the first time. SCAG often after a demonstration event will collect data and publish it in a summary report, which we keep on the SCAG website. So we have summary reports of demonstration events throughout the years, I think throughout the past 6 years. So many summary reports, which can act as great examples of how to present the data that you've collected at a demonstration event. So those are on our website. And of course, for those of you in the 6-county SCAG region, the kit of parts is available at no cost year-round for agencies, jurisdictions, and community-based organizations. All right, so I wanted to get into the kit of parts activation playbook, which is on the SCAG website. It's basically a how-to guide on how to implement a temporary demonstration using the kit of parts. But again, I think it is useful beyond, just because it provides like a very useful overview and timeline and just step-by-step like breakdown of how these events are put together. So from the very beginning, gathering your team and brainstorming ideas for the activation project, the logistics coordination, so specifically for the kit of parts, reserving the kit of parts and arranging for delivery. Then moving into how you invite community members to be part of the activation, promoting and advertising the event. Additional preparations like coordinating other aspects and logistics for the event day, such as your community engagement activity. And after the event, any follow-up tasks that are part of the planning process, such as the documentation, videography, data collection, and reporting. So yeah, very useful step-by-step checklist and descriptions of what you can do to make your event a success. All right, I will hand it back to Victoria. Thank you.
Elena, that was so wonderful. Thank you for that rich presentation. And so to follow up quickly on that, we're going to invite our next speaker, Susie Rico Vasquez, to pull up her slide deck while I do her introduction. Perfect. All right. So just as an introduction to Susie, Susie works for the Fresno County Department of Public Health. She is a health educator, a supervisor, one of 7 leads in the Division of Health Policy and Wellness. She works closely with Rosemary Amaral to co-direct the Cal Fresh Healthy Living Program. With their team of health education specialists, they aim to increase access to healthy food and beverages and also increase physical activity opportunities. Their team empowers residents to bring positive policy systems and environmental change to their own communities. She's a graduate of CSU Fresno, holds a master's in public health, education, and promotion. Specifically, we've asked Susie to join today because she's going to speak to her experience as a part of the ATRC's Kit of Parts pilot program outside of the SCAG region. So Susie, if you can get yourself into presenter mode, I think, then we'll turn it over to you.
I am ready.
Okay. Can you increase the slide presentation to slide presentation format, or?
It says that my screen sharing is paused, so I'm not sure what that means.
Okay.
Resume share, maybe?
Yeah, resume share.
Okay, let's see. This.
And perfect.
Is
Okay,
that
wonderful.
good?
And you sound great. Okay,
Great.
take it away, Susie. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Victoria. Just because I'm at home today, I don't want to mess up the internet connection, so I'm going to minimize my video today. So I apologize on that, but you'll definitely hear me, and I'll keep an eye out if there's something that I need to address in the chat. So super excited to be here with you all. Yes, we had a really great opportunity working with SCAD's Go Human Kit of Parts, the lending library locally. And so today I want to move forward and just share, oops, it's not clicking through. Let's see. Oops, how do I forward the slide?
So it helps if you take your
Oh, there
mouse.
it is.
Perfect. You've
There
got
it
it.
is. Perfect.
Alrighty.
Thank you. So yeah, today I'd like to share about our Fresno Kit of Parts pop-up demonstration and share some of the challenges and lessons that we learned from this project. So in Fresno, this program provided Fresno County Department of Public Health its first ever opportunity for a tactical urbanism demonstration of this kind. We've never done this before, so it was our opportunity to learn it, do it, and be it. We built partnerships and our own capacity internally that we really previously did not have. So I'm really, really fortunate. This was definitely an innovative pilot that tested our capacity within the Department of Public Health. It helped the department determine if there really is a place for us to do this type of community engagement. This is a non-traditional setting for most public health departments to work in. And so, post-event, post the success of this event, I feel like health departments should be at the table, planning, implementing, doing some of the community engagement where appropriate. And for us in particularly in Fresno, the CalFresh Healthy Living Program staff and a SPAN program staff were really involved in the planning and implementation of this work. The Department of Public Health staff learned how to work very closely with the Public Works policy, Public Works planning, learning their policies, resolutions, maybe some of the procedures and other safety requirements that were required for this type of work. Like I mentioned before, we really felt like we didn't know how to facilitate this kind of work. So it was our opportunity to learn. This pilot increased our team's capacity. We built stronger relationships, and now we have a network. And because of this new network, the Department of Public Health is really looking forward to duplicating the effort in other communities, especially in our unincorporated areas of the county. The learning curve for this project was steep, but the gain from this project has been tremendous. One thing's for sure, the Department of Public Health has definitely mastered the process and completion of a special permits application. That's a beast. So I'd like to, thank SCAG's Kit of Parts intern for developing this short video, which demonstrates how we use the Kit of Part elements in our pop-up event. California Walks worked with our department and every neighborhood partnership agencies to develop and facilitate this temporary safety demonstration. On Thursday, December 8th, 2022, we implemented 2 temporary demonstrations that were hosted along California Avenue in Southwest Fresno. Most of us know it as 93706, the zip code. We worked together to install a protected bike lane on the north side of East California Avenue and Waterman Avenue along through Kern Street. And then we also did a creative crosswalk on the west leg of East California Avenue and South MLK intersection. Let me see if I can play this real quick for you. I'd like to mention that California Avenue is considered a school zone with high volume traffic of vehicles and pedestrians. This is also the path that connects Edison High School with 2 elementary schools, King and Sunset. The path along California also is most taken to get local food, to get to a local food site for basic food necessities. Our Fresno team originally prepared to conduct 2 demonstrations on December 8th and we prepared to conduct a demonstration on December 8th and then another demonstration on December 10th. However, our second event was canceled due to weather. And we would have actually teamed up with a local farmers market on the second event, but like I said, it was canceled due to weather. Oops. Okay. So our Fresno event overview was amazing. We collected a lot of information from residents, over 80 community members, including students, parents, business owners, stakeholders. They all completed a survey, which was amazing. It gave us great feedback. A majority of the respondents who responded to the survey supported the demonstrations that were put out along the street. Over 100 individuals participated in the actual demonstration, the live demonstration. The demonstration was really useful to increase engagement around the active transportation efforts in Southwest Fresno that were being planned or that are being planned. These efforts include the Complete Streets Priority Projects, the informing the master plan development in our community, in particularly in this region, and providing data for active transportation application, the future applications that will come, and other funding opportunities that the city and or the county will apply for. Through the collaborative efforts with our local community-based organization, Every Neighborhood Partnership, they supported the capacity building and the involvement of the residents at the local level. And I really feel like it's really important to make sure that we have programs, services, and agencies who are really in tune with the local residents to do that type of engagement. Make sure that we're engaging folks, meeting them where they're at. Again, we had many challenges in Fresno, and we took those as opportunities to grow and learn. And so some of the challenges that we worked with was finding out and researching and connecting with our public works and our planning departments at the city to learn more about policy resolutions around pop-up live demonstrations and then follow their lead. We're not the experts in safe streets or functioning streets or keeping people safe. It's them that are really familiar with that work. So again, we learned a lot, and we learned that there was not any resolutions in place that we can follow up with or that would assist us in implementing this type of pop-up demonstration. So we have more work to do with our local city and county public works and planning departments and safety teams, traffic safety teams. Because we didn't have any policy resolutions or policies in place for these types of things, we had to complete an event special permit and traffic safety plan. And we had to figure out how to pay for those things locally to make sure that our project came to fruition. And it was really important for the local agencies working boots on the ground to determine who could cover these costs and how. Another thing that really popped out for us is, we had to make sure that our local nonprofit and the statewide agencies, as well as other CBOs that we were working with, we had to make sure that everybody was on the same page. Public Works and the traffic control departments have recommendations when we're at the table planning for pop-up demonstration sites. So it's really important to include them in the scaling and the design and just to make sure that the safety of all users of the road are included. The Department of Public Health was key to foster, to encourage everyone to come to consensus. And we really did encourage the cross-sector collaboration at a local level. And I mean, lastly, I mean, we have so many challenges and we took those as opportunities, like I said, but let's not forget about the cost associated with the local CBOs doing the public notice, the boots on the grounds, the knocking on the door, the engagement that happens before the event even is implemented, and then during the event itself, and the training involved that it takes to help our volunteer residents to learn how to conduct the survey with other residents in the community. And then post-event, reconnecting with the community. Those were some of the key takeaways that we faced. And as Alina discussed, there is budget considerations across the state for a statewide initiative, but locally, we really had to determine and work very closely with our partners to make sure that the scale of the pop-up was doable for the amount of volunteers and staff that we had, and how we could coordinate to leverage community engagement with other events, with other planning events. We wanted to do a multi-day event, but we ended up doing a single day just because of weather. So just keeping in mind that, to be flexible. Another key thing is if you have a multiple day pop-up, that the cost for traffic safety plans increases. It could be anywhere from 1,500 versus 5,000 for safety traffic plans, public notice, and staff time to make sure that when staff are actually in the street or volunteers are in the street placing the enhancements, that it's done safely. Lastly, I just wanted to note that the types of materials purchased and rented is really key. There was other items that we needed to borrow from other agencies that were not incorporated in maybe the budget costs at the statewide level. So anywhere from table pop-ups, tables, tents, clipboards, tablets, borrowing Wi-Fi and hotspots so we can do the live community engagement surveys. So just things to consider. So costs can vary, and it's important to include some of those costs. Procurement considerations, depending on the project, the funding, the scope, and the scale, procurement challenges will pop up. For the county health department, we have our own internal process on how vendors come on board. So we had to work closely within our county purchasing and our own Department of Public Health purchasing to determine how to get vendors on very quickly so we could make sure to get the traffic safety plan in on time, paid, and secured. Another big concern that the Department of Public Health had was as hosts, and in this instance, we weren't hosts for this pop-up event. It was CalWalks who was the host of the event. And we're really grateful and thankful that the host agency was able to adhere to the high level of general liability and insurance requirements that were needed in order to secure the traffic control safety plans, and then also for the special permits application. And I think lastly here for this slide, just eligible costs, making sure to include the materials that you might need to borrow or rent, the permits that we didn't account for, but now we know that there may be some permitting costs, CBO payments and shipping challenges. So lessons learned for us, I think the big takeaways for us is we feel at the health department that it's really important to prioritize people first. People who are living in that community or in that area or in that neighborhood, use approachable terminology with residents, meet them where they are, engage them, and also to compensate our CBOs for the time investment that they do to help in these types of collaborations. And for us, it's really important to immerse ourselves within the community that we're serving. CalFresh Healthy Living Team and our CBO that was at the table with us for planning and implementation, we are really immersive in the residents and hearing their voice in all of the planning that we did for this project. We need to make sure that we prioritize equity. Safety improvements must prioritize equity. It's critically important to identify areas that have high incidence of crashes, but also recognize that those trends, those also tend to be areas of historic disinvestments. So we can develop a high injury network, and it can serve and identify areas of concern. But ultimately, we still need to apply that equity lens to benefit the communities that we're trying to serve. I'd like to make sure that I mention that we should ensure that community feedback should be and should be done in the most meaningful, and it should be incorporated in the projects and planning during the event and post-event. We need to think about every interaction between each agency at the planning table and the public as an opportunity to repair relationships in the community that we're serving. There may be a lot of concerns in a community, and I think that we should be aware of issues, but also be approachable in every interaction that we have. Data is critical, but we also need to be aware of the incompleteness and the bias, right? We can address the data gaps through qualitative research, community feedback, crowdsourcing of information, and proxy data sources. But we also need to understand the context of the collisions, and it's important to look at and address root causes. So some of my recommendations are very similar to Alina's, but there's two that I really want to hit on here. For us locally, it's really important. Recommendation number one is allow enough planning time to ensure buy-in from the local jurisdictions. And for us, it was city planners, city traffic control, safety, and it's important to consider how buy-in can be determined based on whether or not current policies or procedures or rules or regulations exist around how to implement temporary demonstrations. And for us, we didn't have policies, resolutions, or procedures, and we didn't know those. So it was a steep learning curve for us. So I would strongly urge people to connect and have those cross-agency collaborations where possible. And then I'd like to hit on number 4, the recommendation to cover all costs associated with the deployment, including payment of special permits, traffic control, and engagement activities by local partners. This was really key for us. And I think all of our local agencies here in Fresno County we did the best we could for the circumstance that we had. And I'm really grateful for CalFresh Healthy Living stepping up to pay for those special permits and the traffic safety control plans and the public notice that was a requirement for this event to even take place. So under this program, under this pilot program, permit fees and traffic control were all paid for by our agency. And we're glad to have covered that cost. And that takes me to a thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to share with you today, to share our story.
Thank you so very much, Susie. We have learned so much from your willingness to engage in this the pilot program. We learned through you, and I think through it we've learned how we really can support a local health department role in this work. So thank you so much. I'm going to keep us moving in the interest of time to make sure that we have also time for question and answers. Our next presenter, Margot, is going to bring up her slide deck, and I will introduce her as she does so. So Margot Ocañas is the City of Los Angeles' first pedestrian coordinator. Through this role, she led LADOT with many of its department's firsts, including the creation and management of its inaugural Plaza Parklet placemaking program, a council adopted data-driven prioritization process for safe routes to schools for schools most in need, and then also the city's Vision Zero High Injury Network. She also manages the city's Safe Routes to School program, which has secured a substantial amount of funding for the design and implementation of school neighborhood street improvements for 39 of the top 50 schools in need. She also has led efforts to pioneer the city's first 4 demonstration pop-up events, which is why we've invited her to speak today. As one of the largest Safe Routes to School programs, Margot collaborates very closely with the Los Angeles Unified School District, which is the nation's 2nd largest school district. She also collaborates with multiple city and regional agencies and community-based organizations. And then as if she doesn't have enough on her plate, she also manages the department's neighborhood and bicycle enhanced networks projects. So on that note, Margot, can you bring up your slides?
Unfortunately, I am so sorry. I am having for some reason, it was working during our trial and I am challenged. It is not allowing me to share. Let's see, let me just try this. Use password.
All right. If need be, I might look to my 2 teammates to see if they're able to bring up your presentation, which is, I know, not ideal for you, but we can advance your slides and maybe that way we can move forward.
Sure. I know that we're close on time and I want to be as succinct as possible. So I don't want to dilly-dally. And
okay.
Perfect. Okay.
Perfect. All right. Just let Alicia know when you need to advance and take it away.
Perfect. Well, what an informative morning. So thank you to everybody for joining and sticking with us through this really information-rich morning. So as people were moving through their presentation, before I jump into mine, wanted to kind of just reiterate some of the key learnings that people have shared to date, because they really factor into some of the things I wanted to share with you. So in brief, I am, again, Margot Ocañas, leading multiple initiatives at LADOT, and in particular, I've had a lot of fun. I do want to emphasize that I encourage you to consider doing demonstration events and quick builds, because in addition to a lot of learning, they are actually they're also great for enjoyment and fun and learning, not only for the team, but also for the community. But this project in particular incorporates a pop-up, which we also use the demonstration word. So it's a demonstration event as well as quick build. So my goal relative to the other presenters is really just give you a high-level view of all the components of our process from the start of the quick build project until its launch. All of the lesson learned slides that have been shared today, please take them to heart. So I don't necessarily want to repeat those, but they were all very pivotal in our own experience. So why don't we begin? Next slide, please. So what I'm going to walk through is the concept and engineering plans that informed our project. We did a pop-up event, and then we actually built out the quick build, and then I'll do a deep dive on the engagement. So next slide. So the genesis, I thought it might be helpful to give you a little bit of background on how we actually came to deciding on this quick build project. And the short of it is that the Safe Routes to School program had a city council adopted prioritization of all the public schools in the city of Los Angeles. And for 3 years, we had a planning grant to develop infrastructure plans for the top 50 schools, of which one of them is Young Oak Kim Academy, posted there. So as part of our planning process, we worked with that school for about 3 years, doing walking assessments, engaging that community. All of that input went into an infrastructure plan. However, the opportunity to submit for a quick build treatment opened prior to our ability to prepare Young Oak Kim's larger plan for an infrastructure grant. So we were pretty excited about kind of pulling a subset of that, pulling a subset of the treatments out to manifest in quick build. In short, from the time that we started the quick build project in August of 2022, we were at this for about 18 months until we opened the project this past January. Next slide. As I mentioned before, we had the opportunity before submitting for the quick build application to be working with the school community, and an example here of our walking safety assessment that informed our broader understanding of the school neighborhood and its issues and concerns. Young Oak Kim Academy is an 800 student middle school. It's located in one of our densest kind of transit, commercial, and increasingly dense resident apartment complex area within Koreatown, and the campus is fully surrounded by wide streets with lots of vehicles and high speeds. Next slide. One of the things that we also learned about Kim Oak Academy, which informed our thinking about how to redesign some streets around the school, was the fact that nearly 50% of Young Oak Kim's population walks to and from or uses transit. So ironically, despite sitting in this very sort of vehicle prioritized area of town, we have a really large group of youth, middle school aged, who are using their feet to go home, or also getting themselves to transit. So that was really helpful context to keep in mind. This was the larger safety and infrastructure plan that we developed for the school. And ultimately, we zeroed in for our quick build application on that blue stretch, which is right in front of the school. That is Shatto Place, between 6th Street and Wilshire Boulevard. That Shatto Place really is the singular exit and arrival and exit gate for the school. It is also the same location where where students are being dropped off. So understandably, it's a highly chaotic area, not very dissimilar to, I'm sure, most schools. For anybody on this call who knows that pickup and drop off area is just this chronically not well-designed area considering its use. So next slide. Next slide, please. And just as a sort of, as I shared before, a large percentage of this population does travel back and forth to school, actually using our street space and not jumping in a car. Next slide. So Shatto Place, as I mentioned, is really kind of the school campus is really bordered on both sides with very busy streets, as well as the street in front of it. And after listening to the community input and our own observations, these are some of the key issues that we sought to address by doing a quick build project. So it's a 50-foot wide street, conducive to lots of speeding. As you can see from the picture, it's parking on both sides. It's north and south. It has one lane south and northbound and has a large center lane. But for all intents and purposes, it is a very wide sheet of concrete right in front of the school, not a lot on the street to really organize or streamline how people move. Because of that, there's a lot of unpredictable vehicular movement. So as the school on the right side, as parent drivers are leaving the curb, they're usually doing U-turns, or they are parking on the other side of the street and encouraging their students to cross, which makes for a melee of vehicle and students, which is never a good mix. We're also dealing with high volume of buses. So there is a bus that travels south, and in most cases, we found the bus using the center lane because of congestion during school time. And despite that all, it's not a particularly inviting context, considering it's a school area. There is a very large 500-unit apartment building at the end, so there are residents in the neighborhood, there's a cafe, and there's an artist studio. So the quick build was really an opportunity to try and trial a change in context as well as safety. So next slide. What I'm going to flip through quickly is one of the comments that was shared before was really build into your project timeline that concept iteration is really important. So this was a very initial concept plan, which was considering mural intersections at both ends of the project area, a dedicated valet lane in that green stripe, and potentially some sort of interesting quick buildy shading component on the right. But that was concept number one. Next slide. This was sort of a slight tweak on it, but we had thought about maybe doing some vertical elements down the center line in addition to the other concept I shared earlier. This went into our application. And then ultimately, next slide, please. When we started our project, because we've been having continued conversations with the community and listening to some of the potential concerns, this was the concept that ultimately informed our geo design. Again, the goal is top priority is to address the safety, but also to really try to change the tenor and the tone and the feel of this area to make it more attractive to the community. So again, I cannot iterate, I guess, strongly enough to reiterate and gut check all of your concepts along the way. And my goal now is to then show you the geo plan, which is the next slide, which this really is the blueprint that, for those of you that do not sit in departments of transportation, that this is really the guiding blueprint for field operations. So again, I'm fortunate sitting in the Department of Transportation, where I have partners with, well, part of our organization are the field crews who do the work in the street. But this blueprint is what guided them as to where they could put the quick build materials, not necessarily the pop-up materials, but the quick build materials. So the curb extensions, the pedestrian spaces, et cetera. And I'll walk through all of those details. I do want to share that and I appreciate the comment in the previous presentation that when you're not, if you are not of a transportation or engineering department, obviously those are critical partners to make. We ourselves, even though we sit in an implementation type agency, there's a lot of gray when one moves into both one-day demonstration events and quick build projects. And part of applying to do these types of projects is to help formulate processes that may not exist or partnerships that you may not have. So it's not only putting the goods in the ground, but it's also the relationships and the processes that can come out of this. So again, our relationships with our own engineers really kind of pushed them in new ways. We also developed relationships with landscape architects and other agencies. We wanted to look at some greening component. And I can't stress enough how important the partnership is with a consultant. Particularly ours was so instrumental in providing us the boots on the ground and the fortitude and the resources to be able to do the engagement comprehensively and ongoingly and in a diversified way that our own staff capacity is not able to do. They also, our consultants were able to procure materials that would have taken many a year to procure during our through our labyrinth processes, and also just help pull materials together in a way that, again, we were a bit limited. So the GEO plan, again, is that blueprint that comes out of multiple iterations of concepting and then helps move you towards your actual installation. But let me actually take you through the various sections and components and treatments of this quick build project. So next slide. So as I shared earlier, we have this very wide street, highly not conducive to the large use of students who are not taking vehicles. So our goal was to reduce the availability of street space for vehicles. And so we removed the parking in front of the school and transformed it into a pedestrian space. And we also installed a dedicated valet lane. So that dedicated valet lane is to the right of the double white line. And that's a lane that's only open to vehicle use during pickup and drop off. The remainder of the street was one southbound, one northbound, and parking on the opposite side. So we've taken that available vehicle space from 50 feet to about 28 feet, really streamlining and organizing where each of the modes are to operate. Next slide. So we had to grind out what was on the street originally, lay down new striping, as well as use some of that color differentiation, in part to truly differentiate for safety purposes, but also just to give the whole corridor a different look and feel. So we went the extra mile of installing the vertical delineators on the center line. Those are the yellow ones, and then the white ones along the dedicated valet lane, and then also a barrier along the kid space. It seems excessive, but we had the opportunity to trial something that we don't generally do, which is put yellow delineators down a center line. But it was so clear to us that we really need to manage how people are coming and going from driveways on the other side, mitigate U-turns, and put up a real vertical message that students are not to traverse the middle of the block, but rather use the valet lane should they be coming and leaving by car. Next slide, please. And I'll move through these quickly. I want to leave room for Q&A. We also use this as an opportunity to install speed cushions, aka instant speed hump. Again, it's a quick build project, so great opportunity. If your city hasn't tried something, put it in the scope of your project. This has been great learning. These poor guys had to go through multiple tools in their tool chest to figure out which ones finally worked, but that's all what quick build is about. So next slide. Again, sorry, speed cushions with the goal of reducing speeds. Temporary curb extensions, which have been discussed earlier today, obviously to slow the turns of vehicles coming into the school block. We did actually fill those in with color as well. Next slide. And in the spirit of just addressing the context, which is there are a lot of people who move around this, we wanted to have some fun with it. So we created a stencil to lay on top of the below curb pedestrian space, which is the dots. We also wanted to extend that sort of fun from the street up onto the sidewalk using the sidewalk stencil, and then wanted to actually engage the students, and I'll speak more about that in the next slide. So here are our field crews at work doing a stencil on a sidewalk, which to them, again, give them kudos. They were open to it and they enjoyed it and kind of mix up the type of work that they generally do. Next slide, please. We also installed these large dots on the below curb pedestrian space, which again is adjacent to the pickup and drop off lane. Next slide. And we actually worked with our consultant who helped create this, or worked with our field ops people to develop templates so that the students themselves could actually help to customize the faces on those yellow dots. So yet another way that we involve the school community. Next slide, please. And lastly, a couple elements that literally are in the process of being put in. We are swapping out some trees that were rather stunted on the front of the school with some really great long-term big shade trees for cooling and air quality. We'll be adding some concrete seats. And again, we are going to be trialing the connecting of many of those plastic delineators with plastic chains. Again, engineers have approved, and we're trialing something that hasn't been done in the city before. But again, the objective of the quick build is to have that opportunity to test. So next slide. And I guess the question is whether, I was hoping to share this, but we have a video, which I'm not sure the person who's doing the slides may be able to pull that up, but wanted to share that this is a quick clip of what the street actually looks like when the project was finished, but I guess not. So from a data collection perspective, we collected this data. Again, speeds and counts are really critical before and after, but we also wanted to make sure in advance of installing the project that we understood parking occupancy, because parking is a highly charged issue. So wanted to be transparent with the community when we spoke to them about the forthcoming design and what its impact to parking would be. Next slide, please. Engagement. Again, cannot overstate how important this is. And what I've highlighted in red is just the distinction between we did a one-day demonstration event as well as building out the project in quick build materials with the anticipation that it will probably be in place for 1 to 3 years. We started in April there was a big family festival on campus, and it was at that time that we solicited the kids' input on the type of art design to put onto the pedestrian plaza space. We had multiple coffees actually with the principal and the parent community. We worked with a student leadership group, about 30 students who are kind of selected as leaders in the school, largely because we wanted them to own the communication about this project, to get them involved, specifically in the pop-up event, so they understood the elements, and then for them to translate in their lingo and language to the broader school community how to use the redesign, why we're doing the redesign, and what the benefits were. And then ultimately sent out project notifications to the school and the non-school community and installed in December. Next slide. So just a quick set of pictures. This is where we gathered input for the pedestrian space. Next slide. We hosted a pop-up event using SCAG's kit of parts. So again, what you're seeing here is the future pedestrian space. We actually use their parklet kit of parts elements just to provide people seating, even though we're not putting a parklet in on the project. The lower right corner, you can see the dedicated pickup and drop-off lane in use on that pop-up day. And in our notification flyer, really trying to, as crisply as possible, explain and define the design to a layman audience who are not familiar with engineering wonky terms. So next slide, please. And lastly, again, I'm not sure if we'll have time for it, but we worked with the leadership community. They did an awesome job of producing a video in which they explained basically to the parent community how to use the redesign during pickup and drop off. And so it was a really great collaborative effort with the kids writing the storyboard and the script, and then working with their teacher of that class to actually shoot the video, edit it, and voila. So if we get a chance to see it, great. If not, next slide. And also wanted to make it clear that it was so important to engage the other side of the street. So the apartments, the cafes, the artist studios, and the union buildings. I will tell you that it's pretty much not until you start your project of installing it and putting up changes coming, notifications on the street, that some of those stakeholders crawl out of crawl out from under their rocks because they are hard to find. But nonetheless, through this project, we have really built great relationships with them. Some of them who had been highly antagonistic initially to the project have very much come around. So I think a key lesson is really constructive listening, understand the perspective where people are coming from, and as gracefully as possible, represent the rationale or the data for moving forward with the design. And with patience, graciousness, and good listening, I think you can actually win. You can win over and build a actually constructive partnership with people. So next slide. So a couple lessons learned, perhaps they've already been touched on, but when you think about charting out your project timeline for your application, or even if you decide to do this without Caltrans, build in time for iteration. It's amazing how many times you can put a design in front of stakeholders, including the school or the non-school stakeholders. They will catch on to one concern. You come back again, they'll catch on to a different concern. You thought you would resolve that. So be open to the evolution and iterations that are required to get to that concept that meets everybody's requirement, including obviously the engineer who needs to approve it. Be on site. So build into your budgets being on site a lot. I know that we're very much in the virtual world, but as much as you can find those stakeholders that you can be in-person relationship building with, it is really a down payment on the success of your project. The other part, which may sound not so important, but build post-installation observation and tweak time into your project timeline. So rather than having your project go right up to the last day of funding, as in your installation right up to the last day of funding, try to leave time to put your project in the ground, as in the quick build project in the ground, and have the funds so that staff or your contractor can be out there observing it and tweaking it, whether it's putting in more delineators, taking some delineators out, moving a box tree, fixing some paint, whatever the case may be, build that into your timeline. Lastly, multi-layers of communication. Flyers don't do it. Get creative, social media, video, mime shows, whatever the case may be, think about variations about how to speak with, solicit input from, and notify the community about your project. And lastly, I had to put this in, but have fun. This is quick build. The advantage is, yes, it's an infrastructure project, but as Desiree called out before, there's some less stringent requirements, which take it to its intent, which is trial, test, have fun, and there are going to be hiccups, but you're going to learn. Everyone's going to learn. And if you approach it in the right manner, the fun can be infectious. So I'll leave it at that. And I'll open it up to questions or turn it back to the moderator.
Thank you so much, Margot. That was a wonderful presentation. At this point, we're actually going to switch to our Q&A. So I'm going to ask that all of our wonderful panelists come onto camera, and so we can answer a few of these questions. I've also asked our host if it's possible just to maybe go over a little bit on our webinar time. The presentations, first off, I will say, have been absolutely wonderful, very rich. We've got a couple of questions about, are we able to access the recording and then slides? So for those of you who want to revisit this content, I know I'll be doing that. All of this is being recorded and shared out. But let's turn to at least a few of the questions to begin with. I'm going to start with the ones that that came in first. So this one came in earlier, and so I'm going to give this one to the implementers. Can you elaborate more on the event insurance needs? I'm thinking this is specifically for the pop-ups that might be appropriate. any suggestions on how to consider amount of general liability needed for injury, damage, etc.?
If you'd like, I can just share the model that we have in the city of LA, which again, there may be large and small cities here. We were the applicant, the city of Los Angeles, and then we contracted with KOA Corporation, who has a long history of Safe Routes to School and helped to pioneer pop-up events or demonstration events with us in the city of LA. The advantage is that we as the city have the insurance, and as part of our contracting process, the contractor for our guidelines also needs to carry the sort of a 1 million level of liability. So I'm probably relative to Susie, who's coming from a different perspective. So I'm glad you guys are hearing this. That is an important reason for having a partnership with an agency who has that, because most nonprofits and smaller agencies or smaller contractors simply are not going to have that requirement. So, but Susie, feel free to chime in.
Thank you, Margot. I agree with you fully. In our case, CalWalks was the agency, the statewide agency that had the capacity to fulfill the general liability requirement that the city was asking for. And ultimately that the county health department was asking for, because there was some, based on our county, there was some type of liability that the county, there was concern that the health department could be held accountable if something didn't happen correctly or someone got hurt. So we needed to make sure, the health department needed to make sure that those general limits, and also not just the city, but was named in those general liability forms, but also the health department was named, the county of Fresno. So there was a couple of hoops that we had to jump through in order to make sure everyone, including the non-hosting agency, was covered.
And I'll just add to build off this, and because if we have planners or engineers on the call, this will be helpful. For the purposes of the one-day event called a demonstration or a pop-up event, we were very diligent in creating a geo-design plan. So I had shared in my presentation a geo-design plan that informed the blueprint for putting the quick build in. But we have, through sort of being the pioneer on pop-ups, we have learned that getting a geo-design plan signed and approved by an engineer for your pop-up event is also very helpful and puts everyone at ease that you're keeping it kosher is coming to mind, which is completely inappropriate. But I guess what I'm just saying is that it makes sure that it's a very transparent. Engineers have reviewed it. So even when you're putting your one-day materials in place, it's very clear that the appropriate city engineers have signed off on it.
Very good advice. Thank you both. Okay, I'm going to move to the next question. This one I think is for the Caltrans team, and we've also invited Beverly from the CTC to join us as a panelist. So if you want to also weigh in on this one, and that would be great. So the question is, how many quick builds are approved per cycle? Is there a limit to how many quick build projects are funded per city?
I would have to defer to Beverly from CTC on that question.
Okay, and Beverly?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I got promoted to panelist as you were reading it, and
Oh,
I did not hear it. I heard the beginning of it.
Sorry, Beverly. Okay, so this question reads, how many quick builds are approved per cycle? And is there a limit to how many quick build projects are funded per city?
So this cycle, we will dedicate up to $7 million for quick builds. And so we can, we could recommend less than $7 million in total funding. We could, we could fund several projects, we could fund none. It really just depends on what we get. They're evaluated separately from the main application pool. So I can't give you an exact number, but there will be $7 million available.
Perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. And then the second part of the question reads, is there a limit to how many quick build projects per city, funded per city? is there any kind of idea about caps on if say City of LA or County of Fresno were to apply? Is there a cap in terms of how many would be selected from a city?
Nope. Just like the regular ATP process, it's a competitive process, and if you submit the 2 best applications, and we would fund those. So yeah, there's no limit on the number.
Okay.
I don't know if it's helpful for context just to share that the City of LA's Quick Build project, which again was the first cycle where they were offered cycle 5, ours was a $250,000 project, and we were able to do, obviously transformed a large, long block, but we also were able to do a pop-up event as well as actual quick build out.
Wonderful. And I will say that the ATRC team in our post-webinar communication will share out some of the, maybe a link to your application, the quick build application from cycle 5 that ultimately led to the funding of Margot's project. So wonderful. I'm going to move us on to the next question. Oh, this is a really good one. Can the ATP be used to develop a process for an agency to do a demonstration or quick build project? And I just want to, reiterate that, both Susie and Margot kind of stressed, the gray area that comes with quick builds and demonstration projects. And so the steep learning curve and just kind of the need to work through the gray to formulate processes that may not already exist and build on those, really build and maximize the relationships to lead to clearer processes. So thoughts from the Caltrans and CTC team?
So we would expect you, if you're applying for a quick build, we would expect you to apply for a quick build, like not like a process for developing quick builds. I think you could like fold like quick builds. If you were applying for a plan project through like the main ATP, you could fold like, like exploring quick builds into your plan, and like kind of develop maybe a process through that. So yeah, like the quick build is like for, you want to do a quick build now, but maybe through, like if you're applying for a plan, then I can imagine you can include a process there.
I'll just build off that. We were very fortunate to receive a planning grant. I mentioned that earlier. We received a very large, $2 million planning grant, and we developed 50 safety infrastructure plans for the 50 public schools of highest need. As part of that planning grant, one of the engagement tools that we also included was to do pop-ups or demonstration events. So it was through that planning grant opportunity that because we said we were going to do it, we had to figure out the process during the duration of that planning grant. That thankfully was a down payment so that by the time we came to apply for a quick build project, we had a couple of previous pop-up experiences. But I certainly wouldn't, if you don't follow that path, which is sort of, I guess, our own customized, kind of unique to our city, the reality is you will figure out the process, but the joy of getting the project that you have to physically manifest is both developing the process and getting the elements on the ground. I think there's enough experience to show that you can figure out a process between Susie and myself and everybody else who's gotten a quick build project. It is doable. Just try to stay open-minded that it's going to go left and right and left and probably back again and in a circle. And you're like, I'm right here where I started with. This is a Groundhog Day conversation. But at some point you'll break out and you'll start charting a process that hopefully you can memorialize and pass on to the next person who opts to do a demonstration event or a quick build.
That's great. I see that Alina's been able to secure your camera, and I'm just wondering, since SCAG supports so many demonstration processes, do you also provide a certain level of assistance to cities and in your region on how to, what processes need to be in place? Can you speak to a little bit of that as an MPO, sort of helping to work with your jurisdictions?
Hi, yeah, I can. So every year we provide technical assistance opportunities for like a select number of jurisdictions and community-based organizations that are interested in leading a kit of parts demonstration. So that includes all of the like in-depth planning and technical assistance that I mentioned in the slides that California Walks provided to the pilot communities. That same type of technical assistance, like consultant supported technical assistance, is a resource that we provide every year for communities. Beyond that, to the communities that we don't provide technical assistance, we still provide kind of like a walkthrough of everything that is required on our end, and a walkthrough of some of the items that might be required on the on their like local jurisdictions. And on top of that, of course, we provide the kit of parts, which kind of, or the kit of parts activation playbook, which kind of breaks all of these down in like an easy to read format. But
Great.
yes, it varies from city to city.
Yes, that's wonderful. And yeah, just to reiterate that the resources that Alina provided will be shared out, and so definitely things to look at. And Susie, did you want to chime in as well?
Yes, I just wanted to say that right now, I think in the Central Valley region, we do have a gap. I don't think we have an agency that has a kit of parts. So I think in the Central Valley region, maybe Fresno County, Tulare County, we need to look into this opportunity to see where we could apply for funds or where we can secure funds to develop a kit of parts that can be loaned out in our region. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I think through the planning process of this pilot project, we realized that, oh, well, wait a minute, if we want to do multiple projects in the future, how do we do this? So I just wanted to throw that out there. We know that there's a gap.
Great. So I am going to skip around a little to some questions given our panel and the expertise that we have assembled here. And I'm going to ask a question from Brittany White. And Desiree, I think this is going to be a good one for you to start with. So how do you determine whether a quick build project is the right approach to implement improvements compared to a full cost and schedule project?
I think I would actually prefer the implementers to ask that type of question.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it would be dependent on, your type of project and your area and your community. So I think the folks that have the experience with that would be the best people to answer that.
Okay, Margot, back to
Sure.
you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Desiree. Yeah, that is a great question. And we were at a time, so in much of our safe routes to school assessment and realizing what many of the concerns and obstacles were, we had this traditional set of, we put up some signs and, things that just fundamentally were not changing the behavior. And here we were standing in front of a really large school and just looking at chaos and saying, putting up a few signs is just not going to address the situation. So we were, obviously the great thing that's happening now, or since when we applied in cycle 5, is there are a lot of great resources that have come online. Lots of cities have done pop-ups and quick builds. There are resources from Bloomberg and NACTO, et cetera, that can really fuel your imagination. And some of those concepts, our city was not doing. And in order to kind of shift the culture or get that engineering and health and city leadership comfortable with doing things out of the norm, we suddenly were looking at a block where we thought, God, if we could really change how people move, but before we scare people, let's just do it as a quick build, because if it should go not the way we thought, we can remove it. And so I think when you're thinking about whether a big infrastructure plan or a quick build, think about maybe a larger plan that perhaps you've been cogitating on, and how maybe there's a subsection of it where you'd really like to kind of push some innovation, and the quick build may be a logical component out of it and be a stepping stone to then lead you to think about the larger infrastructure plan, because you've already warmed the waters with some of those treatments. And truthfully, doing a quick build type project is great engagement material to include in your infrastructure plan application down the road.
Excellent, excellent. All righty, I'm gonna hop around to the next one. So this is, let's see, I think we can have time to answer a few more. I know we are a little bit past time, but this is such a rich topic, and I really do feel like people are benefiting from this panel of implementation and the ATP's, you know, specific eligibility needs. So there's a general question about estimated amount of time to do demonstration, concept to implementation versus a quick build. I think, Margot, since you have experience with both, do you want to answer the timing, your experience about
Sure.
timing needs?
So a quick, sorry, let's start with the demonstration and pop-up. I want to use same vernacular as Desiree and Ali. So your 1 day, like popping it up, we've done from 7 hours to 48 hours, but really movable components. So if you are having it out for a couple of days, please think about possible security that you may need to make sure your stuff doesn't walk away. But I would say it's probably 5 months of planning to get to a, say 3 to 5 months of planning to get to a pop-up demonstration, versus the quick build goes in the ground with the hope that it's there for 1 to 3 years. And the planning for that is probably the 12 months of our 18 months was really digging into the quick build design, throwing in the pop-up event to kind of pressure test that near final geo design.
Okay. That's great. I'm going to also go back to the recording to understand that a little bit more. Maybe we can also discern that for our listeners. So this is, I have a couple questions around engagement. So this this is actually very interesting. So we're looking to do a road diet on multi-lane roads in and near schools that would start out as demonstration and then lead to a quick build project or lead to quick build projects. How do you suggest getting people involved in a space that is high volume and high speed in a manner that wouldn't have city lawyers worried about the liability from the get-go? So I'm going to put that out to Margot, because you're kind of our most experienced person, but I really want all of the implementers to also weigh in with their experience. Susie might have a little bit of, I mean, I don't know the exact volume numbers for the road where you did your separated bikeway, but it was definitely multi-road, so multi-lane. So Margot.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I'm really glad that they're cognizant that certain factors must be at play to ensure the safety of a pop-up event. Again, a pop-up, assuming it's 1 to 2 days, will surprise people who probably drive regularly down that street. So a couple things. I would suggest that for your demonstration event, which you're doing to inform your quick build project, that for this demonstration event, that you bring the following people to the table when you're starting to plan, and as early as you can bring them to the table as possible. I highly recommend it because, again, your concept is going to keep iterating as you're hearing concerns or you're seeing opportunities. Obviously, your transportation engineer, it doesn't hurt to bring a civil engineer to the table, even though you're not doing anything in construction, in concrete. In our department, we have parking enforcement, traffic control and parking enforcement. Those are the guys that when there's special events, they're the ones that manage traffic flow. Don't know how that exists in other cities, but bring them to the table early. Bring your field crew management to the table. Even though it's early on, the sooner they understand what you're trying to do, they're going to chime in with the type of materials and the time it takes to install it. Bring landscape architects. Maybe there's some interesting greening opportunities. Again, vertical greening that's temporary is kind of a good visual cue as well. Bring your...
I'm going to prompt you with one, Margot. Fire department, emergency services.
In our department, those are fair people to bring. It is the auspices of your engineering. So as I explained, in our world, in order for anybody to do a work, we had to get to a geo design, which I shared in my presentation. We had to do one of those for our pop-up event as well. As part of their geo design development process, it is the responsibility of the engineering team it's just part of their role to check with fire and pop-up, fire and police. However, I will tell you that in one of our pop-ups that we did not for this project, but a previous one, we actually walked around the corner, and on the day of the pop-up, even though we told them it was coming, we asked them to come on the day of the pop-up event and to drive through the pop-up design. Because again, as part of tweaking, before it goes into quick build, could they make their turns? Could they get the access to the buildings? So we brought them in, but not necessarily in the early planning, because our engineers, by kind of their DNA, are supposed to view projects through the lens of a fire department and EMT.
Okay. Good. Do I have any other folks that want to weigh in on that, Susie?
Real quick, I just want to say that as part of the special permits application, there was 19 different agencies, departments, or divisions that needed to review our application for every aspect that Margot has mentioned: fire, ambulance, public transportation, the school representative that was worried about before and after school pickups. I mean, we had 19 different agencies to run that through. So having your traffic control plan, your mock-up of your design, there's technical terms that Margot used. Those are all important, and you have to make sure that you follow and adhere, you listen to what they're recommending that you need to change before you even implement it in the street. You have to make sure you address their concerns.
And I think that's a distinction again between being a city agency and not a city agency, because there are probably two routes. One is, to Susie's point, applying for a permit to be able to do what you're doing, versus as the agency, we own the street, I guess, in a way. So we don't have to give ourselves a permit. But those are, again, just to clarify people, that those are two separate tracks. So it really depends on who's owning which part of the process. If there's a way for your city street owning agency to, absorb that ownership for the installation, that's may ease the process a bit.
Fantastic. Okay. Thank you for making it through all of the questions that we have. We have actually a few that we didn't make through, but I promised that we would follow up through email. I think there's a little specific about just project asks. So I'm at this point, we have gone way past time, but I think it's been very, very beneficial to kind of have this dialogue go, be as rich as it has been. I want to, on behalf of our technical assistance team, thank everyone who presented. Here's our contact information if you have questions on on the non-infrastructure side and want to follow up. Next slide, please. And then just on behalf of the entire Active Transportation Resource Center, I want to thank our wonderful panelists for this very rich discussion. Thank you to Caltrans for helping to clarify how quick builds and demonstration projects are being looked at under the ATP. Thank you to Beverly and Alika for joining us from the CTC. And with that, I'm going to close our webinar for today and wish everyone a happy 2024, and we'll see you at our next one. Thank you so much.